There are different ways to classify chemical reactions. One is to classify the reactions by what happens. So, a precipitate forms. You have an acid-base neutralization reaction. You have gas being evolved. You have an oxidation-reduction reaction. A combustion reaction is a subset of this. This is classifying by what's happening. Or we can focus on the pattern of the reaction and classify by what the atoms do. And so here we have slightly different terms. We think of a synthesis or combination. These are the same two words. Students tend to understand combination more. But synthesis is putting things together. Decomposition is the opposite. It's taking apart. If we look at a combination reaction, we're combining two substances into one. A decomposition, we're taking one substance and breaking it apart into two. A displacement reaction, here we don't have two couples going to the party. Actually, let's skip ahead to double displacement. This is where you have two couples going to the party. There's A and B, the guy and the girl, and C and D, the guy and the girl. And while they're there, they swap partners, and they end up in different combination. Okay, displacement is where you've got a guy who went stag. He went by himself. And this guy brought a girl, but A decides that he really likes C, and so they get together and B has to go home by himself. It's a single displacement. One person was displaced. In this one, both are displaced. It's funny, huh? It's silly, but you remember it when it's silly. The sillier, the better. So, synthesis reaction, here's an example. Here we've got sodium and chlorine, two substances combining to form sodium chloride. This is a synthesis reaction. What other kind of reaction is it? We have a metal and a nonmetal. Redox, this is also a redox reaction. Many of these reactions can have two different classifications. A decomposition reaction, you could try this at home. Drop a 9-volt battery into a cup of water. You'll see bubbles forming. We've got water, one reactant, decomposing, coming apart. It's a decomposition reaction. Here's a displacement, sometimes called a single displacement. We've got one element displacing another. Here we've got zinc coming in by himself, and we've got copper chloride in solution. Copper brought chloride to this party. Zinc came by himself. But it turns out that the zinc and the chloride like each other, and so copper is getting left out. Double displacement. We've talked a lot about those. This general form, and there's a lot of them that fall in this pattern. Precipitation reactions, acid-base reactions, and gas evolution reactions all fall into this category of double displacement reactions. The different categories are just different ways of thinking about how to categorize the reaction. Are we looking at what happens? Ooh, a precipitate formed. Ooh, a gas formed. Or are we looking at what's happening with the atoms? So here we see them as synthesis, decomposition, single displacement, double displacement. So you need to be able to look at a chemical equation and classify it. Here we're given specific choices: synthesis, decomposition, single displacement, or double displacement. This first one, what is it? So we need to look at what are the reactants. This is an element, right? And this is a compound. And what do we have over here? We've got a different compound and a different element. Aluminum displaced hydrogen. Can you see that? Aluminum and hydrogen swapped places. So that's a single displacement. We'll call that SD. What about this one? Double replacement. Here copper came with sulfate and copper left with hydroxide. Potassium came with hydroxide and left with sulfate. They've swapped partners. And one of these is a solid. It's also a precipitation reaction, but it's classified here as a double displacement reaction. How about this one? Synthesis, or combination. And the bottom one? Decomposition. Okay. So we're looking for patterns. Decomposition, one reactant, two products. Synthesis, two reactants, one product. They are the opposite of each other. And then single and double displacement is how many people are getting displaced. Here, both of these guys are getting kicked out into the other person, and here it's just one. And there's your chapter in review. Now, there's more examples, but we're not going to do them.